Hey, what's up guys? This is the video for the test review for Algebra 1 and it covers section 7.1, 7.2 and 10.2. So I probably will do two videos, but let's go ahead and look at the first section of the test review. Question 1, it says to simplify, and you guys have two monomials, 6x squared, and you're multiplying by 8x to the fifth power. So you are going to get the coefficients of the monomials, so the 6 and the 8. You guys will multiply those two coefficients, the numbers in front of the variables. Then, since you are multiplying and you guys have the same base for the variables, x squared times x to the fifth, you are going to keep the same base and you are going to add the exponents, because that's the rule for exponents. When you guys multiply the same base, you are adding the exponents. So when you guys finish the problem, you multiply 6 times 8. That's going to be 48. Keep the x, and 2 plus 5 is 7. So the answer is 48x to the 7th power. Number 2, same thing. You guys want to simplify. And notice that we do have parentheses with monomials. Inside of the parentheses, they are one term. And in between the parentheses, we don't have a plus or a minus. So that means that we are multiplying the two expressions or the two monomials. Same thing as number 1. You are going to multiply the coefficients of the monomials. So the numbers in front of the variables, I have the -4, so I'm going to take that number, and I'm going to multiply by the 10 on the second monomial or the second parenthesis. Then I'm going to look at the same basis, which are the variables. So I do have the x cubed times the x squared. Remember that we are multiplying. So you guys are going to keep the same base, and you are adding the exponents. That is the property of exponents. You guys add when you multiply the same bases. Then for the y, well, this first y, it has an invisible 1 exponent. So let me just write that down. And the second y, you're multiplying by y to the 4th. So you guys keep the base y, and you are going to add the exponents 1 plus 4. So when you guys do finish the problem, you multiply -4 times 10, that's -40. X, we have an exponent of 5, and the y, we have an exponent of 5 as well. So my answer is -40, x to the 5th, y to the 5th. Number 3 is a little bit different because you guys have a monomial 4x y cubed z to the 7th, and we're going to raise all of this to the 4th power. So we have an exponent outside of the parentheses. So when that happens, you need to multiply the power or the exponent outside times the exponents inside of the parentheses. Remember that even though a number or a variable don't have an exponent, they actually have an invisible 1. So 4 has a 1 here, x has a 1 over here, the y has a 3 exponent, and the z has an exponent of 7. So you guys will take your exponent of 4, the one outside, and multiply times every exponent inside of the parentheses, just the exponent. You guys are going to keep the same basis. So the 4 stays the same, but you guys will multiply 4 times 1, for the exponent is 4. And then you guys have the x over here, and you multiply the exponents, 4 times 1 is 4. And then you guys have the y, multiply the exponents, 4 times 3 is 12. And the z, you multiply the exponents, 4 times 7 is 28. Now, you guys can simplify this part of the expression, 4 to the 4th power, and you guys can use the calculator. But mathematically, what we need to do is, we need to multiply the base by itself 4 times. So we have 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. And that's going to equal 256. You guys keep the x to the 4th, y to the 12th, and z to the 28th power. So here is the answer. Number 4 is very similar to number 3, but we have to be careful with the negative inside of the parentheses. And also we have an exponent of 5, which is an odd number. So that's going to help us find the answer when we have a negative inside of the parentheses and the exponent is odd. But first, let's go ahead and understand the exponents that we have inside of the parentheses. So the 2 has an exponent of 1, and the x also has an exponent of 1. They're invisible, but they do have an exponent of 1. You are going to multiply the 5 times the exponents inside of the parentheses. Now remember, we do have a negative here, and it is inside of the parentheses. So when I multiply the exponents of the 2's, the base of negative 2, I keep the negative inside the parentheses, and you multiply the exponents. 5 times 1 is 5. We're going to have to simplify that, but let's do the x first. Then you guys go to the x, and you don't need the parentheses for the x because x is just x, doesn't have a negative in front of the x. And you guys multiply the exponents. 5 times 1 is 5. Over here, you guys are going to multiply the base by itself 5 times. But remember that if you have a negative inside of the parentheses and the exponent is odd, my answer has to be negative. So I'm going to have a negative number here, negative, and then you guys will multiply, and you can use the calculator. But if you guys multiply the base, notice what I'm writing down, negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. That's 5 times. You guys keep the negative because it is inside of the parentheses. So when you guys multiply that, we are going to get negative 32. And then you guys bring down the x to the 5th power. If you guys decide to use the calculator to simplify this expression, make sure you guys use the parentheses with the negative inside, because that makes a big difference when you guys have a negative inside of the parentheses, or when you guys have a negative with no parentheses. It makes a big difference. So make sure you guys use parentheses if you guys have parentheses in the calculator. So number 5, we have a fraction inside of the parentheses, and we are going to raise all of that fraction to the 3rd power. So we have an exponent of 3. First, the numbers and the variables inside of the parentheses. Even though they don't have an exponent, remember, they do have an invisible 1. So I know that 3 has an invisible 1, x has an invisible 1 exponent. The z has a 4, and on the bottom, the denominator, 2 has an exponent of 1, and the y has an exponent of 3. So we're going to have to multiply this exponent outside. You're going to multiply that by the exponents inside of the parentheses. But since we have a fraction, you guys will multiply the exponents on the top, and do not forget to multiply the exponents on the bottom as well. So you guys need to multiply the top and the bottom exponents by 3. So here's the fraction line. I'm going to keep the bases, so 3 stays the same, and I multiply the exponents of the 3. 3 times 1 is 3. The x, I keep the x. 3 times 1 is 3 for the exponent. The z, I keep it, and 3 times 4 is 12. On the bottom, you guys have the 2, and 3 times 1 is 3. So I am multiplying the exponents. And the y, 3 times 3 is 9. Now you guys need to check if you guys have the same basis. So look at the actual fraction, and the x and the y and the z, they're not the same base, so we cannot simplify that. But the coefficients, we actually can simplify 3 to the 3rd power and 2 to the 3rd power. So that's going to be, let's do the 3 to the 3rd. Remember, you're multiplying the base by itself 3 times. 3 times 3 times 3. That's going to be 27. You guys keep the x to the 3rd, c to the 12th. And the bottom, you guys have a 2 cubed. So that's going to be 2 times 2 times 2. And that's going to be 8. Y to the 9th power. Let me just write that down so you guys know mathematically that's the exponent. You multiply the base by itself 3 times. So the 3 on the top, you multiply by itself 3 times. And the 2 on the bottom, you multiply that number by itself 3 times. So my answer is right here. Number 6, notice we have a negative, but we don't have a parenthesis. We do have an exponent of 3. So when you guys do not have a parenthesis, no matter what, guys, you need to keep the negative. So you're going to bring down the negative right here. Then you guys are going to multiply the base by itself, all of this, 3 times, because the exponent is 3. So you multiply 2 times 2 times 2. Notice that I only have one negative. So my answer will be the negative, you keep it, and 2 times 2 times 2 will be 8. So there's my answer, negative 8. So number 7, we don't have parentheses, we do have a fraction, and on the top and the bottom, I do have the same base. So the properties of exponents says when you guys are dividing, just like a fraction, this is the division line, you guys are, and you have the same base, you guys are going to subtract the exponents. But I give you guys a trick in my classroom that you guys can use to know where the variable is going to be at. So when you guys have the same base and you guys are dividing, you have a fraction, you keep the base where the highest exponent is at. So notice the highest exponent is on the bottom, the 12. And then you guys are going to subtract the exponents. Biggest exponent minus the smallest exponent. So first of all, I keep the x on the bottom. And then I'm going to subtract the 12, that's the biggest exponent, minus the 4. 12 minus 4 is 8. Now, since we don't have anything else on the top, there's no other variable or a different number other than 1, we have to keep that 1 right here. And I'm saying other than 1 because x has an invisible 1 here. So you guys keep the 1 on the top, and the bottom will be x to the 8th power, and that is the answer. Number 8, once again, you have to look at the negative inside of the parentheses. There's a negative 1. And my exponent, even though it's a high exponent, 78 is a big number, I know that since I have a negative inside of the parentheses and the exponent is even, this 78, it is even, my answer has to be positive. When you guys have an even exponent with a negative inside of the parentheses, it will be positive. If the exponent is odd, then the answer will be negative. But this one, I know my answer has to be a positive answer. So I'm going to put here equals, I'm going to put plus, even though you don't need it, I'm going to erase it in a little bit. But that's just to remind you guys that my answer will be positive. Now, if you think about the 1 to the 78th power, well, if you multiply 1 by itself, 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, 78 times, it's going to give you guys 1. Because 1 times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1, and you keep going and going and going. So it's just going to be 1 right here. Do we need that plus on the side of the 1? No, we do not. So my answer is just 1. And once again, it is positive because the exponent is even and the negative is inside of the parentheses. That's how you know when it's positive. Number 9, you are multiplying again with monomials times another monomial. So you will take the coefficients, the 3 and the 4. So it's going to be 3 times 4. Then you guys are going to multiply the same bases. So I have the x squared times the x over here. And that x on the second monomial has an invisible 1 exponent. So when you multiply the same bases, you keep the base. And you guys are going to add the exponents, 2 plus 1. Then you guys are going to do the y's. Y to the 7th times y to the 9th. You guys keep the same base y. And you guys add the exponents right here. So you guys will multiply 3 times 4. That's going to be 12. Keep the x. 2 plus 1 is 3. Keep the y. 7 plus 9 is 16. So the answer is 12x cubed y to the 16th power. Number 10 is a little bit more work because we do have a monomial inside the parentheses with an exponent outside. And then we're going to multiply by another monomial over here. So first, you need to multiply the exponent outside the parentheses times the exponents inside of the parentheses. So remember, 2 has an exponent of 1, x has a 1 exponent, and the y also has a 1. So I am going to multiply the 4 times the 1 for the 2, the x, and the y. So you guys keep the same base. We have 2, 4 times 1 is 4. We have the x, 4 times 1 is 4. And the y also has an exponent, 4 times 1 is 4. You're going to bring down the next monomial, 3x cubed and the y. But before you guys multiply, well, I can actually simplify this right here. 2 to the 4th power. You guys multiply 2 by itself 4 times. That's going to be 16. And then you guys have x to the 4th, y to the 4th, times the 3x cubed and the y. So now you guys can multiply the coefficients. 16 times 3. So you take that right there, times 3. 16 times 3. Then you guys multiply the same basis. So x to the 4th times x cubed. Since you're multiplying the same basis, keep the base. and you guys add the exponents. And then the y's, you have y to the 4th, and y has an exponent of 1 over here. So you keep the y, and you guys add the exponents, 4 plus 1. So 16 times 3, that's going to be 48. X will be to the 7th power, and the y will be to the 5th power, because you're adding the exponents. So there's the answer. Number 11, you guys have a fraction, which means you are going to divide. You have to look at the same bases and the coefficients. So let's go ahead and start with the coefficients first. 3, and we have 27 over here. So 27 divided by 3, you guys can simplify that to 9 over 1. Then you guys look at the x's. Well, there's only one x on the top, no x on the bottom. So guess what? That x stays where it's at, x to the 5th. The y, we don't have a y on the bottom to simplify, so the y squared stays the same, y squared on the top. But the z's, we do have z to the 8 on the top and a z to the 5th on the bottom. So you look at the highest exponent, it is on the top, z to the 8th power. So you guys are going to keep the z on the top, and you guys are going to subtract the exponents. Biggest 8 minus the smallest 1, 5, that's going to be 3. On the bottom, we don't have anything else, so actually we don't need that 1. You can make it invisible in a fraction. You don't need that 1 on the bottom. So the answer will be 9x to the 5th, y squared, z to the 3rd power. Number 12, you are going to multiply the exponent outside times the one inside of the parentheses. So we do have a fraction. The good thing is the bases x, y, and z are not the same base, so we don't have to subtract the exponents. But we do have to multiply the one outside times the exponents inside. So I multiply x to the 5th power and multiply 4 times 5. The y has a 1 exponent, so I multiply 4 times 1. And don't forget the bottom, you guys multiply the 4 times the 3. So you guys keep the same basis. X, multiply the exponents. 4 times 5 is 20. The y, 4 times 1 is 4. And the bottom is a z. 4 times 3 is 12. So my answer is right here. Alright guys, so this video concludes for the first part of the test review. So I'm going to do a second video. Make sure you guys check that one out. I do have 25 questions in total to review. So we just did up to 12 for this video. So I'll do 13 to 25 second video. Make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.